Well, hello and welcome to the Inner Child Rehab. My name is Tanya, and I am here to talk today about perception. So, little bit about me is that I am a clinical hypnotherapist, and I do a lot of shadow work, a lot of trauma healing. And part of my gift is that I help people understand themselves a little better, kind of make sense of the things that they're going through, and I help people guide themselves out of their own way. A lot of times when we've been carrying something for so long, we kind of forget about the weight of it and how much it affects us. And sometimes it takes a perspective change to truly understand what it is that you're going through. So I'm doing these little inner child rehab shows, and it's because I think that we really, really need to connect to our inner child. And that's the root of all the things that we think and know and feel, is because we create values when we're kids. You know, it's like taking a blank book and writing a bunch of stuff in it. You know, the only reference you have to go back is what you wrote. You know, and that's what our subconscious mind does. It's a big snapshot. It's a big pool of gestalt. Gestalt is our memories, things that we've been through, you know, whether we like dogs or not, whether we like chocolate cake or not, whether we like, you know, certain people. So we get all these values, and then we get all of these, I wouldn't call them limits because they're not all limits, but we get these beliefs. Some of them are very limiting. Some of them are just beliefs. And they do have weight in what happens to us in our lives, though. They have the weight because we determine how we feel about everything based on these little guidelines that we got when we were 7 or 8. So the truth of the matter is that we're all walking around as our own inner children. We haven't fundamentally changed who we are from when we were 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years old. All of those same values and morals and ideas and principles that were programmed into us are still there. So when I say that I'm very open-minded about things, and, you know, a lot of people throw that term around like, oh, no, I'm totally open-minded. The best way to do that is to challenge your thoughts and your beliefs about things, because sometimes our views are not completely accurate. So what we're going to talk about today in the inner child rehab, because I really think that we need to rehab our inner children. And it brings healing to us. You know, also a little bit more about me is that I am an intuitive healer. I am a Reiki practitioner. I'm an NLP practitioner. I combine a little bit of the divine and some science and a lot of sass, because it's just who I am. That's what, you know, my programming, my values. I'm a spiritual educator. I educate people on their own spirit. Your spirit is just who you are. We have our mind and we have our body, but we are not our thoughts. We are not our mind. You know, this body, this beautiful thing that we inhabit, is to carry us through this life. So we don't always take the time out to listen to our body because our mind is so full. Unfortunately, sometimes it's so full of shit, but here's where we can talk to the inner kids about it, and we can, you know, make some new shifts, some new paradigms, some new plans, new thoughts, new avenues. But for today's topic, and I got this because I am pulling from Dreams of Gaia Tarot. And the card that I pulled today was Perception. And perception is a really big deal because it's our understanding. It's how we see the world. So, it's our opinion of ourselves and of others. It's our clarity, it's our objectivity, it's, our perception is so important, yet so unaddressed, because the way we see things is not really what our spirit wants to see. The way we see things sometimes is just how we were told to see things. So we have a very limited perspective on things. And this is a way to open up the mind. This is a way to talk about what we have inside, how we can look at ourselves a little better for our own healing, even. And I believe that the best way to do it is to hold communion with your inner children, hold that meeting, just a state of the union. What are our kids thinking inside? How does our 7-year-old see us? Like, who were you when you were 7 years old? And how would somebody grown up as you are now, what would you think of yourself if you were a 7-year-old looking at your 50-year-old self or 35-year-old self, or, however old you are? But the question is, are you different than you were at 7 years old? Does your 16-year-old self need some healing? Did she not see things how she wanted to? And at the end of the day, this is all shadow work. This is all healing work. This is hard work. This is someone facing who you are deep down inside and looking at the shit that has happened to you in your life is really some of the hardest work you'll ever do, because it means that you're accountable for where you're at in your life and it needs to be seen. So through my own healing, the easiest way that I have found of really coming back up into myself and into my life and looking at where I'm at, where I want to be. Is this where I want to be? Or is this where I was led? Is this who I am? Or is this just what happened? Am I just a series of unfortunate events? So let's take a look. So perception, it shapes your worldview. It helps you understand what your senses tell you. Perception is knowledge and understanding. Are they limited? Are they not? Change perception. Can it be changed? Can you really change how you see things? Do you think you need to? Or is it something that you can't change your mind about? Is your perception clouded? Are you distracted by a lot of things that are happening or have happened to you? Have you always been told to take the high ground? That the things that you perceive to be right and true and fair have been told over and over again that you're not. Just go ahead and take the high ground for somebody else's benefit. Or is this really how you feel and you just were never able to stand up for yourself? And here's a really, really, really big one. Can you seek a new perspective? Can you? Can you change how you see things if it's not, and I'm not telling you to challenge who you are at your core, or, you have beliefs that you got to stand up for, and you absolutely should. But are some of your beliefs limiting you? Like, really, like, if somebody tells you, and it's not about what anybody else thinks of you, but if somebody tells you, I kind of agree with you, but I have this vision and I'm sticking to this vision and I'm not changing my perception on it because, I know it's going to lead me somewhere, but time after time after time, that same perception you have is just not been understood. And it's not making you feel good anymore. So let's take a look and see if there's any challenges you can find to your perception that you can just take a really good look at through your 14-year-old view, through your 8-year-old view, your 12-year-old view. So another big question that I'll have for you later is, do you have all the facts? Have you been seeing things kind of like in a light that was proposed to you and you never really saw around them? A lot of this can be like religion, it can be culture, it could be, just health, it could be anything, relationships. When you say, I only want this certain guy because it's just this certain guy. And if this guy doesn't have this, or if this guy doesn't have that, I'm not getting involved. Could that be holding you back? So I'm going to play a little song here and let's think about it for a minute, and then I'll let you marinate in that and we will get back to what's next. Hello and welcome back. So let's talk a little bit more about perception. Let's look at the meaning. It says perception pertains to the organization, identification, and interpretation of sensory information in order to understand what we sense and experience. When the perception card appears in your reading, it symbolizes an opportunity or a need to look at how you analyze and interpret your experiences, and how your interpretation then influences your choices and ability to see and weigh options and opportunities. Our lives are built upon the foundations laid by our perception. How we perceive the world and those around us influences our ability to learn, our understanding of cause and effect, our ability to see and weigh out our options, and to make decisions. There is no area of our life that is not influenced by our perception. Our lives can be empowered and fulfilled because how we perceive our reality gives us confidence. Our lives can be destroyed in an instant if our idea of what is real is revealed to be a lie, and our perception is shattered. So, what happens when we have a perception that is shattered? It's just like with anything else. If we have anything that is broken or anything that is shattered, we look to rebuild it. And that's where it gets really scary, because our subconscious mind does not like unknowns, and our perceptions are built on everything that we know. So if we have to make up our mind about something that is new to us and completely foreign, it is really, really difficult, because we're breaking a pattern that we have lived with and that we have had our whole lives for as long as we can remember. So a really good thing to look at is what your perception triggers in you. Like, does some things that you see it, when you see it, does it make you angry? If you see something that doesn't go along with your perception, like how physically triggered are you with it? How does it hold you back? And what can you do about it? Because sometimes that change is the hardest part, and that's where I want to talk about inception. Inception is the beginning of something great. Inception is the start, the foundation. So once your world is shattered, once that perception, and it happens with people too. Like, we have friends and we have family, and then sometimes once that person does something to you, do you ever get to where you could just never quite look at them the same way? It's because your perception of them is shattered. So after rebuilding it, after seeing something completely differently, inception is the beginning of seeing something in a better light. And that's where you have just that little crack open in the door to say, you know, I don't want to look at this way anymore. I don't want to see it like this. I don't want to do it like this. I can change. I can change the way I feel about something, and I can change the way I feel about myself, and I can start fresh. I can start anew. You know, everybody thinks that change only happens once a year when we're doing our, what is it, New Year's resolutions, our New Year's self-sabotage bail program. It's still like the worst thing ever is to do New Year's resolution. We should resolve to do things that are good for us whenever we feel like it. You know, and in the middle of the cold, hard winter, after, you know, we've been right with families and have those little perceptions weigh in and, you know, see where you learn things and how, you know, it's going to pan out. Because if you feel and think and act exactly as your parents and your grandparents and your aunts and uncles, guess what? You're going to go through the same shit, because that's your limited fucking view. You know, and guess what? That was their limited view from the shit that happened to them. Inner child rehab. And this is why I grew up a certain way. I grew up thinking a certain thing about everything, because I am half Colombian and half German. So my people are pissed and opinionated and like to eat good. But I have shattered so many different perceptions of how I saw the world. You know, when you have this awakening, when you have this kind of like awareness, you know, and that's the other thing that's really great about perception and changing it for the better, is because you become aware. And that's also a big contributor of shattered perceptions, is awareness. Because once you see something, you can't really, like, you know, if you walk into a room and throw on the lights and there's a big freaking ghost standing in the middle of the room, you know, can shut off the lights and pretend like you didn't see it, but it might still be in there. You know, so you got to look at it. And that's where inner child healing comes in really good, because if you are struggling with a perception and you can't change your mind about something, but you know it's not right, I ask you and I challenge you, get into a very quiet place, go inside, and just really feel back. Where did I get that view from? When did that happen? What happened? Because I just told this, you know. And if it's not feeling right, hold counsel with your inner children. Ask them, all right, what did you need at 6 years old? What happened to you? And sometimes it's not something that we have ever thought about. And it could be just as quirky as, you know, the guy that served me that ice cream cone when I was visiting, you know, Wrigley Field in, you know, 78. And he pointed out my shoes. And, you know, when he did, I noticed my shoelace was untied. And when I bent over, I dropped my ice cream, and I never wanted to go back and get ice cream from some dude named George ever again. You know, like it could be something like that. And you realize, wow, it wasn't even that person's fault. It was just an accident. You get a different perspective on it. And then therein lies the inception of, hey, it wasn't so bad after all. Boy, I bet when I was 8 years old, that really, really bugged me to drop my ice cream. That was freaking traumatic. But it's just little things like that that allows inception for a better change, better behavior, better thoughts, more peaceful responses. Instead of reacting, you learn to respond. So I have one more question for you. Who influences your perception? Is it how you see things, or is it how things are pointed out to you? So ask yourself that question. Make sure you have your facts. And I want you to represent yourself honestly, and watch out for that false perception. says, have you heard the story of the 6 blind men and the elephant? They each stand before the elephant. The first man stands at the elephant's head, his hands upon the elephant's trunk. Because of the way the elephant's trunk is shaped and feels moving beneath his hands, he believes that the elephant itself is like a snake. The second man stands at the elephant's tusk. Because of the way its tapered shape and the pointed end feels beneath his hands, the second man believes that the elephant is like a spear. The third man stands at the elephant's ear. Because of the way its shape and feels flat and waving from side to side, he believes that the elephant is like a fan. The fourth man stands at the elephant's leg. Because of the thickness and strength of the elephant's leg, he believes that the elephant is like a tree. The fifth man stands at the elephant's side. When he feels the mighty expanse, he believes that the elephant is like a wall. Finally, the sixth man stands at the elephant's tail. Because of the way it feels, he believes that the elephant is like a rope. With 6 totally disparate opinions based on the information each blind man possessed, the men fall into conflict. Each believes that he is right and the others are wrong. The blind men begin to war with each other, so fixated on their beliefs that they are willing to inflict harm. That sounds familiar. And you know what the sad part is? Pausing from the story for a moment. The sad part is that we inflict a lot of that harm on ourselves. A lot of that harm gets inflicted on us because of perceptions of people who were in our lives when we were growing up. And we do the same to our children, not knowing. That's why it's so important to be open-minded. Back to the story. Suddenly, a sighted man comes upon them and shouts for them to cease. He asks them why they are fighting, and so each of the blind men tells him the tale. The sighted man looks at the elephant and then to the blind men before him. He says, but you are all right. The elephant's trunk is like a snake. The elephant's tusk is like a spear. The elephant's ear is like a fan. The elephant's leg is like a tree trunk. His side is like a wall and his tail like a rope. But you're also wrong. Because each of the parts you have touched are all just parts of the whole elephant. And that's another part of inception that I would like you to have. You can be wrong. Somebody else can be wrong. And we're wrong usually because we don't have the whole picture. And when we don't have the whole picture, we only judge and castigate on what we're seeing. And you can be at the asshole end of an elephant and getting stabbed with a tusk. And you're just a person standing next to a freaking elephant, not knowing what all of it is. And especially when you can't see because your view is so fucking clouded from life, it's gonna throw you off a little bit. And when you find out that you're wrong, the crow on that is hard to swallow. But that's where forgiveness comes in. That's where healing happens, is in the pain, is in the unknowing. And that's why it's so hard for us to get out of our own way to process this. Because sometimes we're just standing next to some asshole and we think we know what's right, and clearly we didn't have the whole picture, huh? So take that into consideration when you're very, very stagnant on your ideals. But back to the story. Each of the blind men then circles the elephant, touching the other parts. With the new information and new multiple perspectives offered, each is willing to concede that he has been both correct and incorrect at the same time. Their increased perception, born of multiple perspectives, has finally allowed them to see the whole elephant, the big picture. Our perception can shift and alter and be enhanced in a heartbeat once the new information born of different perspective is provided. Once it is altered, it cannot be restored to what was. Having touched all of the parts of the elephant, the blind men could no longer hold fast to their original opinions. Even if what we believe to be truth is revealed to be an illusion, and what we once perceived to be an illusion is revealed to be truth, there is no reset button for our perception. Our perception of what is simply changes and alters as our awareness increases. Every change to our perception changes our reality, and every change to our reality influences the choices that we make. I'll leave you with that. The beginning of seeing something new. Having clarity is just such an important thing. And I challenge you to use that clarity. Ask your inner children what they're seeing, what they need to see, and what they need to let go of. I wish you well. I send you love and light. Thank you for joining me today. And I will have a little guided hypnosis. And we're going to talk about how to change these perceptions in meditation. And I'll have that linked. Thank you.